The Magic Castle.
A History of Illusion.
I'm Jason Horton.
I'm Rebecca Lieb.
And this is Ghost Town.
A sprawling chateau at 7001 Franklin Avenue rests above Hollywood and Sunset, overlooking downtown Hollywood. The Walk of Fame, Grauman's Chinese, Jim Henson Studios, and more. But this immense Gothic mansion doesn't just bear witness to celebrity, a bystander in a city of exclusivity, talent, and mystery. No. In some ways, it's at the very center of Tinseltown notoriety, an establishment that houses some of the biggest talents of our time. The chateau is known as the Magic Castle, home of the Academy of Magical Arts. As we explore the Magic Castle, you'll find this notorious institution is a performance venue, restaurant, library, exclusive club, secret meeting place, graveyard, and even a crime scene. Like its history, the castle itself holds many secrets, and even more so, some nefarious tricks up its sleeve. Welcome to Ghost Town's 3-part Halloween episode, The Magic Castle. Part 1, A History of Illusion. Before we dive into the castle itself, it's important to talk a little about where magic was pre-castle. People have been performing tricks for years and years. In ancient Greece and Persia, people would perform illusions to, quote, mimic the work of the Greek gods. In fact, the word magic comes from the Greek word masig, which at the time was a catch-all that encompassed spells, poisons, potions, and any word for something witchy or unexplained. Even then, it was a point of fascination for people, a craft that caught the attention and wonder no matter what socioeconomic sphere, age, or belief system.
And it literally took over the rest of my life. You know, this was like a defining moment for me. It was like opening the door and just stepping in. I just knew that it was amazing and people were doing things right in front of my eyes that defied everything I've known in life.
That's master magician and illusionist and Magic Castle performer Derek Ostavani, who we talked to many a time during this series about the Magic Castle and all of its rites, rituals, and secrets. In 1584, one of the earliest known books to explain magic illusions was printed, called The Discovery of Witchcraft. It was not what you think. It was mostly a book on how to battle witches and witchcraft, but had a very small section intended to explain the tricks of witches and other con artists. Widely considered the first published material on illusionary or stage magic, The Discovery of Witchcraft and other books published later in the 17th century also showcase another through line of early magic: sexism. According to Angela Sanchez, magician and magic historian, magic was an academic tool for men, and women who practiced were a threat to the patriarchal standards already very solidly in play.
When we think about magic as performance, a magician has to run two dialogues in their head. One is the performance of what the audience sees, and the other dialogue is the information that the magician knows but is not sharing with the audience. Obviously, in order to perform a magic trick and do something that's cool for you, the audience. However, in a patriarchal society, a woman knowing something that a man does not know is bad. So a witch then, quote unquote, a magician who is female is withholding information from an audience that has men in it. So, okay, we have the schema of the witch, but the counterpart for men is a wizard. And there's a lot of different social values that are tied up in a wizard. He's usually older as a male, but more benign. He's usually on your side. You have Merlin, you have Gandalf, some cool older silver fox dude. He doesn't carry the baggage that the witch does.
Stage magic gained momentum during the 17th century, but some religious factions pushed back, accusing magicians of being occult figures or conferencing with the devil. During the 19th and 20th centuries, many stage magicians even capitalized on this notion and paranoid belief system in their advertisements, giving rise to the illusionist persona of a scheming, mustachioed man in a suit, one who had many secrets to behold. This continued into the 18th century, when magic shows became a common source of entertainment at local fairs and carnivals. If you frequented one of those, you might have encountered a fellow magic enthusiast, French lawyer turned watchmaker turned entertainer Jean-Eugène Robert Houdin. After opening his own theater in Paris, the Théâtre Robert Houdin Houdin would host illusion shows for magicians all over the world well into the 20th century. Because of his love for magic, performance, and hosting other magicians, he was widely known as the father of modern entertainment magic. At that point, magic in big flashy theaters became the norm, with magicians touring from stage to stage all over Europe. As a note, if Robert Houdin's name seems vaguely familiar to you, especially in the context of magic, you are not crazy. In 1890, Robert Houdin's autobiography was picked up by a young Hungarian kid named Eric Weiss, who would go on to use Robert Houdin's name as homage and inspiration. That magician was, of course, Harry Houdini. We'll talk more about Houdini's life, magic, and spooky legacy in episode 3, but you should know that the turn of the century brought Houdini and many of his peers to the United States. In the early 1900s, the Chicago World's Fair and other regional celebrations drew throngs of people, and Western expansionism begot a new mindset of possibility, inventions, and ghosts. Spiritualism and stage magic often crossed paths, preying on a similar audience of those looking for answers in the unexplained.
Spiritualism is basically a medium. So someone who would claim to have a connection to the spirits of the world beyond would hold a seance, sometimes with or without a Ouija board, and ask for the intervention of spirits in order to provide guidance or maybe even communicate with people who are grieving. You can imagine, for lots of reasons and high infant mortality rates, that people would seek out spiritualists and actively try to find opportunities to be able to talk to spirits on the other side, whether it was for consultation of their personal futures or even just to quote unquote reunite with a loved one.
As Angela Sanchez underlined, magic often echoed or reacted to the changing times. For example, with the rise of the women's suffrage movement in the 1920s, magicians clapped back with an iconic trick we still know today, sawing a woman in half.
Where you have progress in politics and human rights, there is oftentimes a reactionary period. And so women gained the right to vote in the US was then met with the reaction of, no, put them back in a box. The grand stage illusion of sawing through a woman became very popular because this could remind the audience of a time when we can still have control over women's bodies. We can still put them back in a box. This illusion was further sensationalized by magicians like Horace Golden, who would have, to drum up attention for it, would pour out buckets of red fluid outside of his theater and, with the marquee saying, "A new woman sawn in half every night." This very much fed into the public desire of wanting to have control over women's bodies and, by extension, control over women's political enfranchisement.
As the 20th century continued, magic found regional homes around the United States, cultivating its own identity by place.
One of the biggest hubs has always been in New York, and that has been seen as one of the biggest magic scenes. Of course, a lot of magicians would play a circuit through New York, and then as more metropolitan and urban areas in late 19th century, early 20th century US popped up, you had also Chicago. But the magic community has generally been one that, because it is close-knit, if you are a magician performing on the circuit, you're going to go to the next location where you have recommendations from colleagues and other pros as well.
It's at this point in our magical journey that we meet the Larsons, the West Coast first family of magic, and the eventual founders of the Academy of Magical Arts, and of course, the Magic Castle. More magic after this break.
Hi, hello, how are you?
Hello.
How are you doing?
How's it going
Oh,
out there?
how's it going in there? You know what I mean?
In there?
What's
Ooh,
going
don't ask. Don't ask. Don't ask.
It's,
Don't
it's
ask.
just all surface, baby.
Ooh.
We want to say hello to anyone who's listening, supporting, spreading the good word of Ghost Town. Thank you so much.
Thank you very, very much.
We want to say hello to that governmental body.
Spooky.
You're at that point where you're just dropping the word spooky in because you don't
That's
know
right.
what else.
That's right.
You're just so, it's just so numb.
What is spooky when I use the word spooky nowadays? I don't know myself.
Everything's spooky or creepy.
I know. And nothing is spooky and creepy. You know what I mean?
Our mayors have a history of magic and illusion.
Do they?
Uh-huh.
Prove it.
Oh, have you ever heard of making your keys disappear when you need them?
Jesus Christ.
And somebody says, when's the last time you remember having them? And you're like, if I knew that information, I'd have my keys.
Yeah.
Well, that would be the magic and illusion of Ashley Matson.
Hello.
This one's not too far behind.
Hmm.
Where did I park my car?
Ooh.
That's a magic trick. It's like making the car disappear.
It was this road or the next road, or let's just walk a
I
couple
was so
blocks
confident in a parking lot where I was like, I don't need to take a picture of where I am.
No.
And then by the time you get back, you're like, I should have done that.
You're like, I'm trapped in the Westfield Century City Mall.
And you're going to wish you had an AirTag in your car because I learned my lesson. I have one in mine.
Chump.
I have
We're all
AirTags on
chumps.
everything.
That's good. I mean, I use my phone, but sometimes it fails me. Big time.
AirTags are great.
Mm-hmm.
Well, making the car disappear is courtesy of Kat Joselle.
Hello.
A lot of disappearing acts in this one.
Mm.
Making your password disappear. And you're like, what? And then you put in a password, like you'll change it and you're like, you can't use that one again. He's like, but that's the one I used. Why can't I use that?
We're just going to be back in the same place if we don't use this password. Mm-hmm.
That endless loop of a disappearing password comes courtesy of Kelly Meehan.
Hello.
This one it brings him in far and wide to check out this one.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Making your savings disappear. A lot of people who moved to Los Angeles have had that.
I'm a master at that.
Yeah, I've been at that point a couple of times. That would mean I had a savings deplete. It was just a paycheck.
Yeah.
Classic one. Courtesy of our mayor, Casey Weber.
Hello.
This one is making something appear. Making a parking ticket for street sweeping when they're like, I did not move. It's a Wednesday or Friday. I've done it a million times.
You're like, I live right here.
Right. Couldn't I just
I should know this.
or else I'll move it in the mornings. It's 8 a.m. and you won't. And it magically makes a parking ticket appear and it's like $90.
Ooh, that's a good trick. That's a good trick.
It's courtesy of magician Matthew Clemens Leray.
Hello.
Here's another magic one. Making something appear. When you go to get gas and you put your card in and then it says, please see cashier, making that appear. Yeah. And then you're like, hold on, I'm going to do also a disappearing act where I'm like, I'd rather just go to another gas station.
Yeah.
I'd rather just abandon the car and start over.
I'd rather my car run out of gas on the side of the road than deal with that cashier.
Yeah.
Have you ever paid in cash for gas? Yeah. It's a nightmare.
Yes. So this mission can do a little both. Brings the crowds in for miles. It's Marissa Rothermel.
Hello.
And then again, our newest mayor.
Yeah.
A little magical act of his own. This mayor has a way to make something appear when there's no food. They use DoorDash and they make food appear. And then they also make their bank account disappear because it's like,
wow,
2 hamburgers is $86.
Wow, it's a double trick.
Yeah,
that's some powerful magic.
It's some powerful magic. It keeps the world in balance.
And you're like, the one thing that I ask of this magic is that the food arrives cold
and it's thrown at your door.
All fees are hidden.
Yes.
So I don't know till I'm charged.
Or you're like, oh, wow, I get 10% off. So it's only $75 for 3 hamburgers.
For one lone fry.
Yeah.
I just got some food delivered to me and the whole bottom of the bag was soaked through. And I picked the bag up and everything fell out. That's my trick.
Did you throw it at the door?
They're
like,
just like, yeah, exactly. They're like, feed, you bitch, feed.
I would like it if they tied it to something and swung it around like a lasso and just lassoed it at your door and it just went splat.
Yes.
And you'd still be like,
here's your soup dumpling.
Yes. And you're like, give me that. Give me that. And you just open up your door and you're like, no. Like modern conveniences. Well, that's courtesy of brand new mayor, Chris Hernandez.
Hello.
And then our governor. Making things appear and disappear every single day. It's like, you want 3 sloppy ass hamburgers thrown at your door? Appear.
Yeah.
It's like, you want money in your account? Disappear. It's just a lot of appearing and disappearing. Never loses her keys because you don't need keys to a private jet.
No, you do not. You don't take care of those keys.
And you know where the private jet is. You're not like, where did I park?
Yeah.
Is there no street sweeping for a private jet?
No, my driver will drive me to the jet where I will be piloted to wherever I'm going. Please, she says.
Yeah.
I do this in my sleep, she says.
It's just the magic of being above it all.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no magic in being below it all. It's just, you're just the person getting the slop from the door,
That's
the
right.
wet bag.
That's right.
Yeah, your wet little bag, she says.
And I will.
That would be our governor,
Avian Noble.
If you want no ads, no chit chat, bonus episodes, just the good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/ghosttownpod. You want to get back to some real magic?
Let's get back to some real magic. The history of the Magic Castle begins not with the structure itself, but with a magic-obsessed family called the Larsons.
The founders of the Academy of the Magical Arts are Bill Larson Jr. and Milt Larson. The parents of Bill Jr. and Milt were Bill Larson Sr. and Jerry Larson.
Bill Larson, born in Green Bay, Wisconsin, not far from where Houdini lived, gave up a practice as a thriving criminal attorney in Pasadena to follow his dream, magic. Quote, he was kind of like Johnny Cochran of his day, said historian and illusionist Jim Steinmeier in the documentary M for Magic. But unlike Cochran, Larson performed magic tricks in the courtroom until he got to go pro. Then Bill Larson worked his way through resort hotels and private gigs, and eventually married Geraldine Larson, the daughter of master magician Sam Conrad. Jerry, she was called, was a hugely successful and savvy magician herself, an early adapter of magic for children's television. Here's a little clip from one of Jerry's highly successful television shows, KTLA's The Magic Lady, that aired in the 1940s.
I'm known as the Magic Lady, and children, just for you, I'll wave my wand, my mystic wand, and magical dreams come true.
She was charming. I describe her as having a Snow White vibe, but with magic.
Jerry Larson was among the first magicians to ever be on television. And I think that that's a big hallmark note. One, because she's a woman in magic. And then two, TV only had 3 channels. Oh my gosh. So the whole notion of there's literally only so much on broadcast. And you, as a female magician, are one of the magicians on television.
Jerry also started a women's magic association for the very small group of professional women magicians on the West Coast. It was in that spirit of connection and magical expansion that begot Genie magazine, first published in 1936.
It's one of the biggest, and it's been around the longest. It's I believe it's a quarterly magazine that comes out.
That's Genie, but spelled Genii. It was created as the official magazine of the Pacific Coast Association of Magicians, a club created just 3 years prior to connect the burgeoning community of California magicians and magical artists.
Genie magazine was the go-to magazine for community news about magicians, as well as also sharing information. It was one of those things that bound the community together early on and gave a sense of, oh, there's a connection now that we have to the Larson family, to Southern California.
A note about the Pacific Coast Association of Magicians. The organizations were known for their very fun magical conventions. The third of these, in 1935, was held at the Knickerbocker Hotel in Hollywood and was attended by Bess Houdini, widow at that point of Harry Houdini. We did a whole episode on the magic and haunted history of the Knickerbocker Hotel back in 2018, a long time ago for us, and you can find a link to it in the show notes. I would highly recommend it. But I digress. Remarkably, Genie is still a publication. Many issues are on display at the Magic Castle, showcasing tips for performance, supplies, new tricks, op-eds, and more. While beginning their magazine, Bill and Jerry had 2 children, Bill Larson Jr. and Milton Larson, who also both inherited that passion for magic and entertainment from their parents. In fact, the family would tour as the Larson family magicians until World War II made that difficult. So eventually they settled back in Los Angeles and opened a small magic shop, while simultaneously performing, writing for Genie, and creating new magic tricks. To give you a sense of how important the Larsens were in the community, in 1999, Magic Magazine, different Magic Magazine, MAGIC, selected the Larsen family as one of the 100 most influential magicians in the 20th century. As Bill Jr. and Milt grew up, Bill Sr. would tell them about his ultimate dream, to create an exclusive, quote, magic club run by his family, a place for magicians to connect, hone their craft, and ultimately for the art to thrive and be appreciated. A step towards this aim occurred in 1952, when Bill Sr. announced in the April issue of Genie magazine that he was creating a new organization called the Academy of Magical Arts, of which all the subscribers were automatically given membership. This exclusivity, a kind of magic secret club, would be foundational to the culture of Genie, the Academy, and of course what was to come, the Magic Castle itself. Unfortunately, in 1953, at the very young age of 41, Bill Sr. passed away of a cerebral hemorrhage due to alcoholism. Their father's passing gave young Bill Jr. and Milt even more momentum to see their father's dream through and create their own names for themselves. In the 10 years after his death, Bill Jr. became an executive producer for CBS and Milt for NBC, while also writing jokes for the game show Truth or Consequences. Together, the two performed magic events under the title It's Magic at places like the Wilshire Ebel Theater, with a young German assistant named Irene Stoltz.
And she was just...
Here's Lindsay Benner, a variety artist and Magic Castle performer.
Yeah, she was absolute royalty. They called her Princess Irene.
Meanwhile, Bill Jr. and Milt were always looking for appropriate buildings that could become their magical headquarters. Milt eventually discovered a 17-room, 3-story mansion called the Holly Chateau above sleepy Franklin Street at the base of the Hollywood Hills. The Victorian chateau was built in 1909 by real estate investor, lawyer, banker, newspaper editor, and philanthropist Rollin B. Lane to entertain, and boasted a roof garden and a sun parlor.
It was designed from a home in Redlands, California, and they kind of took that basic structure and put it on the hill in Hollywood.
In September 1961, the building was leased to Bill Jr., Milt, and their assistant Irene, who was just as passionate as her 30-something bosses about the world of magic. Bill Jr. began running the numbers and Milt did the renovations, which started with creating a close-up room and bar. Despite the chaos that came from renovations, the Academy of Magical Arts was run out of the castle, and Bill Larsen quit his TV job in order to manage the club and Genie magazine. It was at this point that the Academy of Magical Arts officially made Irene Stoltz its first inducted member. And later that year, Irene and Bill Jr. were married. But January 2nd of 1963 was arguably the highlight of the Larsen family's year. It was the day the Magic Castle officially opened for business.
When the castle was founded in 1963, there was a lot of doubt that this private club that you had to have membership to would be successful or not.
Quote, most people thought we were crazy, and we were, said Milt in the documentary M for Magic. Aside from the inclusions of more theaters, bars, a library, and some other meeting nooks, the Magic Castle of 1963 was remarkably similar to what it is today. Guests, dressed in strict formal attire, enter the lobby of the castle.
It just feels different when you walk in to a room filled with people that are all dressed to the nines. It just changes it a little bit, so I could appreciate that, and they uphold that. It doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter what celebrity status you have. If you don't meet their dress code, they're not going to let you in.
Visitors must say a secret phrase to a small bronze owl to gain access to a secret bookshelf, which opens up into the actual entrance of the club. A multitude of magical performances are showcased each night, spread across its theaters. Close-up gallery, which features intimate sleight-of-hand performances. The Parlor of Prestidigitation, a 58-seat theater that recreates the Victorian parlor magician experience. And the largest stage, the Palace of Mystery, which features a 120-seat theater for some of their bigger acts. Of course, there were also the fringe areas to see magic, including the Peller Theater, Hat and Hair Pub, and the W.C. Fields Bar. Magician members are encouraged to perform impromptu magic for guests in informal areas near the bars, in the many nooks and crannies where one can catch a magician up close and personal. Here's a clip from 1969 of a magician doing just that, brought to you by the Center of Sacramento History.
And I have another one I'd like to show you in just a second. After she undoes the knot. This is for the ladies only. Ladies I know do a little sewing at home. I'm going to make a needle eye. So I'll wrap this around a few times to make a very tiny needle eye. See the needle eye, but I'll make it quite small, very tiny. Now, it's very difficult to thread a blunt needle like this, too. But when I look at an attractive lady like you, look what luck I have. Threading the needle eye right before your eyes, In
the music room, a piano is played by Invisible Irma, the castle's, quote, resident ghost. whom we'll talk more extensively about in episode 2, along with Houdini's seance room, the members-only library, the audition process to get into the Magic Castle as a performer and member, and some of the wilder member rules and regulations. But for now, we're talking about celebrities, namely Cary Grant and the multitude of other people that the Magic Castle attracted and housed. Then and now, the Academy is overseen by an elected board whose president was Bill Larson up until his death in 1993. Back in 1963, the board included actor Cary Grant, a magic lover himself, and one of the club's first members. He'd hang around the club so much, according to the documentary M for Magic, that visitors would come up to the bar on busy nights and ask the bartender, quote, "Where did you get that guy? He looks just like Cary Grant." But Grant wasn't alone. Celebrities clamored to become members and patrons, including Ronald Reagan, Johnny Depp, Drew Barrymore, Debbie Reynolds, Hugh Hefner, and Katy Perry, who actually celebrated her 28th birthday there with a lavish costume party. But performers were just as glamorous as the guests, and included Johnny Carson, Tony Curtis, Jason Alexander, Steve Martin, Orson Welles, and Neil Patrick Harris, who served as the president of the board of directors from 2011 to 2014. But as the years progressed, modernity caught up to the seemingly idyllic chateau in the hills. In 2020, according to coverage by the Los Angeles Times, between 2011 and 2019, the Academy was sued by former employees for, quote, alleging violations of the Fair Employment and Housing Act, which protects against sexual harassment, discrimination, and retaliation. One woman guest described how she was called up to the stage by a performer who tried to touch her chest during his trick. One server alleged that she was sexually harassed and then fired when she reported it to management. Magician member Kayla Drescher collected statistics for the Times to illustrate the sexism there, saying that from 2016 to 2018, only 7% of booked magicians were female, and that desired rooms and primetime slots were rarely given to women. And then there was the allegations of racism given to the Times by former employees and magician members, including a former cook who said racial epithets were common in the kitchen. 3 of the 4 cases of sexual harassment were eventually settled out of court, and the castle's general manager, Joseph Furlow, resigned 2 weeks after the LA Times investigation broke. As a response, a diversity and inclusion committee was implemented at the castle, comprised of magicians like Drescher and others, all as volunteers to help make the castle more equitable. The Academy's board released a statement that they hired a law firm to conduct a months-long investigation into their interior. They said, quote, the findings were serious and broad-spanning, covering management, culture, human resources, operational systems and processes, and the need for systemic change. The board of directors went on to say that, quote, we admit our own past shortcomings in this area. We will work steadfastly for a more diverse and inclusive club in our membership, our performers, our staff, and our outreach. Erica Larson, daughter of founder Bill Larson, said that they are, quote, deeply saddened. The Academy of Magical Arts and its clubhouse, the Magic Castle, were built on a foundation of love for the art of magic and love of community. The Larsons do not condone discrimination on the basis of race or gender, sexual harassment, or any form of abuse and intimidation. Whether lasting change has actually been implemented and integrated into the fabric of the Magic Castle is still a question. But the magicians involved remain optimistic that the castle is doing what it can to evolve, include, and generally just do better.
I know that they are always very aware of how, it for the most part, this tends to be a white male game. And so they do a lot to try and promote women and like people of color and all different. They're trying to have magic be a more diverse.
A March 2022 election for the board of the Magic Castle expanded from 7 to 9. New Academy president and 40-year Magic Castle veteran Chuck Martinez told the Times that there were problems at the castle and, quote, taken to heart by the entire membership. The new board has 4 women on it, 3 of whom are officers, and it has 2 gentlemen of color. It really shows a lot of openness to turn the page and create a whole new era for the castle. Magicians young and old look to preserving the castle's long-standing traditions and for respectful inclusion into its ranks. But still, there is so much more to be explored within the culture of the Magic Castle. Land disputes, musical ghosts, secret handbooks, Imagineers, and death on our next episode of the Magic Castle, The Dark Arts. See you next time.
Angela Sanchez is a magician, magic historian, writer, and cartoonist whose senior thesis, Conjuring the Modern Woman, Women and Their Representation in the Golden Age of Magic, was used heavily in the research of the series. You can find her thesis, writing, show dates, and more at AngelaMSanchez.com. If you're in or around Chicago, catch Angela presenting a lecture on magicians of color in magic history at the Chicago Magic Lounge on Sunday, January 26th. Lindsay Benner is a variety performer who can be seen all over the globe, including Vegas's Super Frico, at the Cosmopolitan Las Vegas, and the Magic Castle. For more about Lindsay, check out her website at lindsaybenner.com or her Instagram at lindsaybenner. Derek Ostavani is an award-winning mentalist and magician. He's toured all over the country, including the Chicago Magic Lounge, and of course, the Magic Castle. To book or reach out to Derek for an appearance, show, or interview, you can go to his website, magicwithderek.com.